How did the most powerful empire in history rot from the inside out? It wasn't just barbarian hordes or military defeats. The real story, the one that's often overlooked, is a tale of greed, power, and breathtaking corruption. We're talking about the Roman Senate, the very institution meant to be the bedrock of the Republic, becoming a hotbed for men who stole an empire. Imagine this. You're a governor of a Roman province, say, Sicily. You have absolute power. The locals are at your mercy. For men like Gaius Verres, this was a golden ticket. He didn't just tax the people, he plundered them. He'd walk into a wealthy family's home, see a beautiful statue or a priceless piece of art, and simply take it. If they resisted, he'd fabricate charges, seize their entire fortune, and maybe even have them executed. He stole so much that when the famous orator Cicero prosecuted him, it took multiple speeches just to list a fraction of his crimes. And Verres was just one man. This was happening all across the empire. Now, you might think, how could they get away with this? Well, the system was rigged. To even become a senator, you had to be incredibly wealthy. Campaigns were ruinously expensive. You had to throw lavish games for the public, bribe voter blocks, and make promises you couldn't keep. The only way to pay off these massive debts was to secure a profitable provincial governorship after your term in office. It was an investment. You spend a fortune to get elected, then you make that fortune back tenfold by looting a province. The entire political ladder was greased with dirty money. And it wasn't just outright theft. There was a more subtle, legal kind of corruption. Take public contracts, for instance. Building aqueducts, roads, and temples was big business. A senator could use his influence to ensure his friends or business partners won the contracts. They would then inflate the costs, use substandard materials, and kick back a hefty percentage to the senator. The public treasury was being drained, and the very infrastructure of Rome was sometimes built on a foundation of fraud. Another classic move was manipulating grain supplies. Rome depended on huge shipments of grain from places like Egypt and North Africa to feed its massive population. A group of wealthy senators could secretly buy up large quantities of grain, create an artificial shortage, and then sell it back to the state at an exorbitant price when people were starving and riots were breaking out. They profited from public misery, all while positioning themselves as saviors who solved the crisis they created. Then there was bribery in the courts. If you were a wealthy senator accused of corruption, what did you do? You bribed the jury. The courts were often made up of other senators from your own class. It became a running joke in Rome that with enough money, you could get away with anything. This created a culture of impunity. Why follow the law when you can simply buy your way out of trouble? One of the most infamous figures in this story is Marcus Licinius Crassus, often called the richest man in Rome. How did he make his fortune? One of his most notorious schemes involved fire. Rome was a tinderbox of wooden tenements. When a fire broke out, Crassus's private fire brigade would rush to the scene. But they wouldn't put out the fire. Not yet. First, Crassus would offer to buy the burning building and the ones next to it for a ridiculously low price. The desperate owners, facing total ruin, would often agree. Only then would his men extinguish the flames. He literally profited from disaster, buying up huge swathes of Rome for pennies on the dollar and becoming the city's biggest landlord. This rampant corruption had devastating consequences. It hollowed out the Roman Republic from within. The gap between the super-rich elite and the impoverished masses grew wider and wider. People lost faith in the Senate, in the courts, and in the idea of the Republic itself. They saw their leaders as nothing more than self-serving thieves. This created a power vacuum. The public grew tired of the bickering, greedy senators and started looking for strongmen, military leaders who promised to clean up the mess and restore order. Men like Julius Caesar. Caesar built his popularity by positioning himself as a champion of the people against the corrupt elite. Of course, he was also incredibly ambitious and used his own vast fortune, gained through conquest, to secure power. Ultimately, the corruption of the senatorial class was a key factor in the death of the Republic. It eroded trust, destabilized the state, and paved the way for civil war and the rise of the emperors. The senators, in their endless pursuit of personal wealth, effectively stole the empire from its people and, in the end, from themselves. They traded their republic for riches, only to lose both. The story of Roman corruption is a powerful warning from history. It shows how easily institutions can be captured by greed and how a nation that loses its virtue is destined to lose its freedom. It's a reminder that the greatest threat to a powerful state often comes not from external enemies, but from within. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey into the dark side of Rome interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into history. See you next time.